All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Consistency Corner podcast. I'm really pumped for our conversation today with LaShonda Brown. And LaShonda and I met inside of a networking group. And she is an award-winning tech educator, YouTube coach, and speaker, and also a Canva verified expert. So she knows the tech, she knows YouTube, and we have been talking a lot on the podcast and with my own clients about leveraging long form content and YouTube being one of the platforms that can do that. And it's really interesting because LaShonda has shifted her business from being a service provider to a full time content creator, working a 20-hour work week and having passive income from LinkedIn. Or sorry, not LinkedIn, YouTube, but she's big on LinkedIn too. So I'm sure we're going to get into all of that. But I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today, LaShonda. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation that should hopefully encourage people to give YouTube a try.
Yes. And I think that's what when I reached out and asked you to be on the show, I wanted to do that for our audience. I want to encourage people to give YouTube a try because I think there's a couple of things that hold people back. One is the tech of like, oh my gosh, that sounds like a heavy lift. And that sounds like a lot. And two, the burnout we have felt from social media of like, oh, and now you want me to add another platform. So before we get into all that, please share with us a little bit about your journey, your entrepreneurial path, and what led you to what you're doing today.
I think people need to understand that I have been in your position first. I think some people aspire to be full-time content creators from the beginning, and that was not even remotely on my radar. I have been a corporate film producer for over 10 years, and I quit my job when I was selling assessment tests and snacks in college when my husband started our video production company. And I was like, hey, I'm making $500 a month. Can you pay me that? And he's like, you're hired. And so we started that when I was 21 and we're still doing it. And so after 10 years of doing that, I really felt this heaviness that I wanted to change my job. But I also didn't want to start from scratch. Like I didn't want to work my way up in another field all over again. And so I thought like, what can I utilize from my past that'll help me have a more promising future? And when I took a step back, I'm like, girl, you've been creating videos for people for years. What about you being the producer of your own content and distributing it for free on YouTube? And so all of a sudden, the cameras that we had, the lights that we had, the mics that we had, instead of having to load those up in a truck and travel all over the country, all I had to do was turn them on in my office. And so that actually started this journey of really creating the business I wanted to work for. Because with our video business, that was just a desire to support my husband. You know, I didn't want to start that. He wanted that. And so I thought, well, if I want to start a business, what would that actually look like? And it was being the mentor that I always wanted. You know, when we started that company, the amount of mistakes we made because we had nobody to ask. I'm like, you know what? I've learned how to make money, how to market online, how to start a business, and how to use tech to make your life easier. What if I just did that? And so back in the day, I don't know if I marked it private, but if you dig, I used to call my YouTube channel the Blossom Network because I had like a logo that had a flower in it. I thought it was deep at the time. But I ended up changing the name to Bootstrap Biz Advice because I wanted to remove the stigma of people bootstrapping their business. We all had to start somewhere. You know, most of us are not, inherently wealthy. And so I'm like, okay, for those people who have to DIY, I want to help them to keep their expenses low and their profit margin high while they're DIYing. And I'm going to be that person to say, hey, try this. You know, I did this free trial. This can help you do that. If you're deciding between email marketing softwares, here's the pros and cons. And so I began to realize that I became this like honorary member of people's teams where they're like, oh yeah, it's like you're training my marketing team because girl, I done sent them your Canva tutorials as like my SOPs. And it's just very sweet because I'm able to be supportive, but within my bandwidth. And I think that's just a happy medium. And then realizing that tech companies don't know how to speak to entrepreneurs, then I started saying, oh my gosh, I can actually really get paid being that middle person. I
Mhm.
understand tech, I understand entrepreneurship, and I can help those companies and those brands speak to each other so everybody can win. And that's kind of where we are now.
Yeah, that is so true. Developers are great at what they do and they understand the science, they understand the infrastructure, but they don't always speak in a language that speaks to the end customer. And so finding that middleman, that person that kind of can connect the dots between the two is really important because there's these incredible tools out there. But if you feel like this is not for me, I'm overwhelmed, I can't learn it all. Like you're not going to use the tools and then you're not going to be successful. And the company is not going to be successful because they're not attracting and retaining users, right?
Well, I definitely think the main reason why people don't have more time freedom is because they're overwhelmed by tools that'll help them get there. And
Mm,
so if I can remove the overwhelm, then all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, I'm not afraid of that automation, or I'm not afraid of that AI tool. And then
mhm.
all of a sudden you're like, dang, I was spending 10 hours doing that manually, but now this thing can do it in an hour. And so people know me for the phrase, work less, live more. And if they give me a chance, I explain what I mean by that is do less work manually to live a more fulfilling life. The work is still getting done, but the work doesn't always need to be done by you. And in order to get to that point, you probably are going to need help from someone who's done it before to kind of guide you through what that process looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And, when we think about delegating or automating or even deleting, because sometimes maybe we're doing busy work and things that we don't need to be doing, so many of us, and I'm speaking to like high achieving women, is we have been taught and believe that we can do anything. And we can, but we can't do everything. And that's where the burnout creeps in, or the like, I'm not ever going to be able to scale past this level because how could I possibly take on any more? So I love that you teach people how to work less and earn more. How does YouTube fit into that for you personally?
I mean, at the end of the day, YouTube is my passive income engine. And that's the way I describe it. I think a lot of people don't understand like the behind the scenes of how the platform works, and
Hmm.
they try to compare it to things like Facebook or Instagram, and it's really not the same. YouTube is a search engine. You can be social on it, but it's not really a social platform. And so you're able to optimize your videos just like you would a blog post. We all understand the value of SEO for blogging, and so what can happen at that point is when people Google for certain keyword terms within that video section of Google, YouTube videos rank there. And then they
Hmm.
also rank in the YouTube search. And so for me, especially when it comes to Canva and Flowdesk, especially, people are looking for Canva tutorials or troubleshooting something in Canva, or they're curious about Flowdesk because it's a brand new email marketing software. And so they're Googling it, they're, searching in YouTube, and then they're seeing the high quality thumbnails. And then you get a preview because the videos will autoplay. They'll get a preview of what my videos look like. And the quality is so high that people tend to gravitate to my content because they're like, oh, well, she's like an authority on this because I'm a Canva verified expert, but I'm also a Flowdesk University instructor. And so it's not like I'm just some guy using some tool.
Hmm.
I'm very much connected with Martha and her team at Flowdesk. And, I haven't met, the C-suite executives at Canva, but I do have team members at Canva that we meet with on a regular basis. And so when it comes down to how things work or what things are coming down the pipeline, I know that because I have an actual relationship. And
Yeah.
so I think that gives me a level of authority to speak to these tech tools that a lot of creators don't have.
Yeah.
And so people do gravitate to that. They'll watch one, they'll say, oh, that was great. And then they'll just keep binging. And so even just through that traffic, just from play the video, AdSense, affiliate income from Flowdesk and Canva, like that's a significant part of what I do. And so I think people really need to take a step back when they think about YouTube. If they feel super overwhelmed, you don't even need your own product to promote on YouTube to make a living. And
Yeah.
so it is just such a healthy, supportive community to be a part of that I try to encourage as many people as possible to give it a try.
Yeah. And it's interesting when you and I connected, hearing that story of it's become your passive income stream. Because I know I always thought of it as a top of funnel or middle of funnel tool to drive people to your offers and your products and services. And so to hear it used in a completely different way is fascinating. And I think what you really hit on is that it's not social media, it's a search engine. And that's a big mindset shift when it comes to creating content for that platform, right?
Well, and I think people understand the concept of affiliate marketing as well, but they don't understand how powerful YouTube is for promoting affiliate links. I would say I looked at my Q1 numbers and almost 40% of my income came from affiliates.
Mm,
Most people are not killing it like that.
yeah.
And the reason why is if you watch a Canva video and you don't have Canva Pro, well, how are you going to sign up for Canva Pro? Are you going to go through the effort of digging on Canva and trying to find a way to upgrade? Or are you going to, click in the link in my description because I verbally called it out and it's pinned to the top that if you would like a free 30-day trial, just use my link and you can get Canva Pro free for 30 days.
Right.
Everybody wins. Canva gets a new customer. The customer gets 30 days to make sure it's a good fit before they upgrade. And then I get the AdSense revenue and commission off the affiliate link. And so I think with tech, it's a sweet spot on YouTube because so many of these tech companies will actually offer recurring commission for customers you send them.
Mhm.
And so when you think about it in that way, it's really, as far as I'm concerned, one of the only true passive income streams there are. You make a video about something, and as long as that customer keeps paying, you keep getting paid. You don't have to keep making new content or keep winning them as a customer. As
Yeah.
long as they pay for StreamYard or TubeBuddy or whatever it is that you've got out there, you're going to make that money. And so over time, exponentially, it just stacks and stacks and stacks. And so I really don't have to charge high ticket offers. I don't have to do constant launches. I don't have to get caught up in that rat race because that passive income is consistent and it continues to grow as my channel grows.
Yeah. And I think what's another interesting thing is that content doesn't go away. With social media, we put something out there 24, maybe 48 hours, maybe a week or two with the algorithm. If we're lucky, we're getting impressions from it. But you put something on YouTube and you can get impressions, ad revenue, and referral clicks and links for years, right?
Yeah. And I think we also have to clarify another thing. A view on YouTube is not a view from Instagram. Okay. If I only got 5 views on a reel on Instagram, I would probably delete it. Like at that point, I'm like, oh, the algorithm didn't catch it. It bugged out. Like that's not normal, right? But I have been on a live stream on YouTube and I can see in StreamYard that 15 people are watching and I can literally see sales coming in during my live stream from people watching me live.
Mhm.
15 people on a live stream on YouTube specifically, not Instagram, on YouTube is completely different because YouTube allows you to answer their questions in real time, to pin links in the description. And so instead of it being this like wild goose chase of like, oh, I'm watching this content, but now I've got to go through a whole separate platform to actually take action. As I'm watching the content, I can go, oh, yeah, bet. Like she's talking about this webinar she has coming up. She's giving me a code. Let me go ahead and snag my seat
Mhm.
before I forget about this. And so I actually encourage a lot of service providers to seriously consider live streaming because then you don't have to edit that content and you're
Mhm.
able to engage with your community in real time. So you're not just talking to the camera and talking to yourself. You're actually talking to your audience while you create the content. And as soon as you end that live stream, all of those live views count toward the views on the video. So it gets it started in the algorithm and then it can continue to grow with the replay.
I love that advice. And I think from a live stream perspective, that can help overcome some of the hurdles of like, I'm not a video editor, or I don't know what like tech to use to make my videos look perfect. Like, this is someplace that we can start. And so if somebody is thinking about getting started, like, what are some tips for maximum impact with minimum overhead other than doing live streams?
So my members actually requested for me to make a video, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is so silly. But they were like, hey, can you show us how to make a YouTube video on our computer? And so what I did is I started the recording on my camera and I started the screen recording on my computer. And in real time, I just made a fake video from like having no branding, no nothing to finished video. Our team took that long little video and long in the sense that it was probably almost 60 minutes. And they truncated it to 20 because it wasn't just that it took an hour in real time, but because I was filming, it took longer, to address the camera and whatnot. But I watched so many service providers feel so empowered once I broke it down and they realized how simple it could actually be. I tried to pare it down to as few tools as possible. Most people have a Canva account, so we used Canva. We used my favorite live streaming platform, which is StreamYard, and then we used Epidemic Sound for the music. Now, you could technically cut out the music part, but I'm a huge advocate for music helping to make long-form content more engaging. And so like I showed people like, here's how you can make your animated logo sequence. Here's how you can animate the end card at the end. Here's how we can add music to it. Here's how you can talk about your various points. And what's cool about StreamYard is you can use it to record as well as live stream. And so we just used the recording studio feature, recorded it, within the computer. And then that was a file that can immediately go up on YouTube. And so what people saw with that was like, okay, I'm making it too complicated. This doesn't have to be this hard. And so once they saw me do it, then they're like, oh yeah, I can do that. Oh, that's all you have to do. Oh, great. And then you broke it down for me. You showed me what to click on. And so I think that is why I do what I do, is that people have all these preconceived notions. They have all this baggage they don't even realize they're carrying. And when I can make clarity out of their chaos, then they actually post. It actually drives traffic to their offers and it grows their business without increasing their workload. And there's just nothing like seeing a stressed out business owner smile a little bit and say, wow, you took something off my plate. You made marketing easier. And now I can actually focus on running my business.
Yeah. And, one of the things that I think also trips people up, and I love what you said about like, it doesn't have to be that complicated. And I love that you showed people that it doesn't have to be that complicated. And we were chatting before we hit record about authenticity and showing up as who you are. I think one of the things that trips people up is fear of, well, what should I say? Am I going to say it right? Am I going to show up looking right? Any tips for kind of that, like overcoming that mindset, that perfectionism where people get tripped up as soon as that record light turns on of like, I'm frozen. I don't know what to do.
Well, I think you have to remind yourself that it doesn't have to be so long. Long form doesn't mean an hour. It means longer than 60 seconds.
Yeah.
Because at that point, if it's 60 seconds, it needs to be a short, a reel, or a TikTok. And so when you start to think about that, when you're like, okay, I can have a 5-minute conversation on this topic. I can have a 10-minute conversation about this topic. Then all of a sudden you take this pressure off yourself because really what you want is that same viewer to watch multiple videos on your channel and to actually finish the videos. So the longer the video is, the lower the likelihood that they'll actually finish it. So if you've got, 4 points about a topic that you want to, communicate, it's better for you to do 4 videos with 1 point in each one than for you to do a 30-minute video with all 4 parts. And so when we can start restructuring the way that we kind of compartmentalize our content and package it, then that also takes pressure off because it's like, okay, instead of me having to communicate all of Canva's magic suite in one video, it's like, okay, in this video, we're going to talk about magic grab. In the next video, we're going to talk about magic edit, and then all of a sudden you're like, I can focus. Like, I don't feel scattered. I don't feel overwhelmed. And it's better for the audience. It's one of those rare situations where what's good for you is actually good for them too. And so we need to be concise. We need to be brief. We need to be to the point because people are busy. And if you can communicate that within 5 to 10 minutes, like that's a sweet spot. If it's going to be longer than that, then I would encourage you to just do a live stream
Mhm.
where it's more conversational, kind of a rant, and
Yeah.
then that way you don't feel as constrained to have like these formal points. You can just
Mhm.
have a conversation about something you've been thinking about. And so that's kind of how I think about it. If I just want to talk about a topic, well, then that's a live stream. But if I want to teach,
Mhm.
that's a feed video. That's
Yeah.
heavily edited. That's, truncated to just hit all the important points. There is no fluff because I want people to watch it from beginning to end.
Yeah. I'm curious, as a content creator who is leveraging YouTube, how far in advance do you plan your content? Are you a batcher? Are you a 1 week at a time? Do you have your topics planned for a few months? Or what does that look like for you?
I would have to say, unless it's a campaign, like 25 days of Canva that I do, I don't batch my content.
Mm.
I am very responsive to what my audience says they need to know. And I think that changes the quality of the content and it changes the delivery. And so, like, say for instance, I live stream every Monday at 10, and the topic was voted on in an Instagram story on Sunday. The graphic and live stream was scheduled Monday morning, and it took me 15 minutes to like prepare it, put my points in there, and I'm like, all right, Bob's your uncle, let's go. Now granted, I've done a lot of live streams, so I don't stress about prep, but like literally it was 15 minutes before and that was it. But when it comes to sponsored content or something as big as making 25 tutorials in 25 days, well, then that's when I'm like, okay, how can we reduce the friction? How can we, group some of these tasks together? So with 25 days of Canva, I will record all the intros and outros in the same day. I have
Mhm.
snacks. I'm like, I got water. I'm in my slippers because I'm standing the whole time. And I'm just suffering for like a day. But that means when those intros and outros are done, if I don't want to be seen while I screen record all these tutorials, well, now I can be in my Snuggie and just sitting there and no one can see me. So I
Mhm.
can be comfortable for that part. Um, so it just depends on what the end product's going to be. But when it comes to like my regular videos, like so much of it is at most a month's notice
Mhm.
because it's like I'll have ideas. Like I came up with an idea for a live stream maybe 2 weeks before it actually happened, where I was like, oh yeah, it's National Small Business Week. We should have a panel of experts talk about how to grow a thriving online business. And one of my sponsors had agreed to sponsor a live stream, but I hadn't attached their sponsorship to a topic yet. And so I was like, hey, Taylor, what do you think about this? She's like, oh, that sounds great. And I'm like, bet I got to pull this off. Okay, cool. I'll be back soon. And then I'm like emailing friends, like, oh, are you free? It's going to be on Friday at 10 and da 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 da. And, I love that. I love the rush of like, okay, I thought of this idea. It's topical, it's timely. Like, let's do it. Versus feeling so boxed into a posting schedule that it's almost robotic. I think we have to retain our humanity when it comes to content creation and not get so systemized that we forget we're talking to real people.
Yeah, I always encourage clients to sit down and at least make notes on content after you have a conversation with a client or a prospect, because those are the questions your audience is asking you. And that at least is a starting point. And if you're in the space that you have some time, go ahead and create some content right then and there. And you can save it for the future, or if you're not in a season of batching, you can go ahead and put it out. But to that point, it's like inspired content versus robotic. I have to do this because I have to feed the algorithm. And then you're just putting out stale and unenergized content.
Totally. And again, like people can tell.
Hmm.
They can tell when you've like locked and loaded it or you scheduled it 4 months ago and it doesn't feel quite relevant. And so I think that, people are looking at batching as a strategy to add more time to their schedule. But I think what you actually need is just a schedule where you're not full of obligations and you're joyfully serving those people that you're called to serve. And so then you just have space. You have space to just think and to brainstorm and to be creative. I think it's funny how few content creators are creative anymore. They're
Yeah.
so formulaic that I'm like, girl, like, do you actually like this thing you're talking about? Are you actually excited about this? Or was this just like part of a content calendar that was made 6 months ago? And so
Yeah.
I just think that at the end of the day, like, we can tell when you're passionate. We can tell when you're excited. We can tell when you feel, really impressed on your heart to communicate a thought. And those are the videos we share. Those are the videos we like. And so if you don't really care about what you have scheduled, well, then talk about something you do care about.
Yeah.
Even if what you care about is, girl, I'm burnt out. Can we just relate over feeling burnt out or feeling, boxed in, or just something that's just relatable? Those relatable reels and TikToks and YouTube videos, like, those are the things that will grow your audience in 2024.
Because they are showing that authenticity. They are connecting you with your audience in a way that's like, oh, this is a real human. This is a human that I would like to work with who can solve XYZ problem that I have. One of the things that I'm curious when it comes to that, like solving people's problems, and a lot of service providers are busy serving their clients, solving their problems. And I hear from clients all the time, like, I got to know my business to serve clients, not to be a content creator. So any tips for somebody who's kind of in that boat where they're like, I see the power of the content. I even see the potential of the like passive income stream, but like my plate is full serving clients. So how do I make this all work together?
I think we have to just take a step back and look at how your business is functioning, not so much in terms of numbers, but in terms of trends. Like, if you look at how money comes into your business, and there are constant peaks and valleys where, you've got this surge of money coming in because you're serving everybody, but then there's a drought because you weren't marketing while you were serving, then you probably need to be doing YouTube. YouTube for me leveled out the peaks and valleys. Like, my income is so freaking consistent. I can actually forecast things versus before when I was a service provider, it was like, the heck if I know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like, we have to realize that we live in a day and age with the rise of AI, with the height of skepticism, that we have to create content to help people to understand that we're real people solving real problems. You're literally just trying to communicate that I'm competent, that I'm capable, and I'm a real person. Because, like, as simple as that sounds, like, that's a thing now. Am I talking to a real human? When I call the number, are you picking up? Or am I going to be put in a phone tree? Like, it's important to me, if I'm going to be spending hundreds or thousands of dollars, that there's a level of trust established with the company I'm giving my credit card number to. And so your content is the simplest way to scale your ability to validate your credibility. Like, you cannot have a discovery call every minute of every day to prove that you're worth being paid. There's not enough time in the day. And so that YouTube video is going to be living there, showing people you know what you're talking about and you're trustworthy to pay when you are asleep and someone's looking at it, in London, in India, what have you. If you're trying to run a global business, you have to have a global marketing strategy. And it is what it is. Yeah. Now, if you're a mom and pop shop, you can probably get away with that. But if you're trying to sell online, it's just what you have to do. And so YouTube is a sustainable way to do it.
Yeah, that's such a great reframe in terms of your cash flow and like the predictability of your prospects, of your leads, of alternate income sources. So I really appreciate that. When we're thinking about like people who get started in YouTube, or people that are like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm ready, you've convinced me, maybe they've even been doing it for a while. What are some common mistakes that you see service providers make that you can help them avoid?
Starting a channel with no content. I don't know why people do it, but they do it all the time. They will start a YouTube channel and they'll have aspirations of posting. And then months later, they're finally getting around to posting video number 1. I am a strong proponent for have at least, and it's based on your posting schedule, but I would say have at least 4 videos ready when you launch. Most people post every week. Bare minimum, I would say twice a month. And so that idea of when you post your channel, just like you would do a podcast, that's actually a good comparison. You wouldn't start a podcast. I don't even think you're allowed to without 3 episodes filmed or recorded already. I think that's how it works. And so that whole idea of if I'm driving traffic to a channel, the channel needs content.
Mm-hmm.
People are not going to subscribe to a blank channel because they don't know what to expect and they don't know when you're going to post. And so what you need to do is in the back end of YouTube, you can schedule your content to post. You can start with a general welcome to my channel. Here's what you're going to see. But don't start driving traffic to that until you're ready to start posting regularly.
Yeah, that's good advice. And I think also too, even just channel optimization. And, there's a lot of things you can do in terms of SEO and even like in terms of your brand aesthetic and brand consistency, taking the time to set that up and understand how that impacts your digital footprint is something that we want to make sure that we're strategic about, right?
I definitely agree with that. And I will say this too. Another problem I see is that I think people do kind of understand more about the importance of visual branding, but they don't really know how to set up YouTube as a service provider to drive traffic to their offers, right? If you've never, I think other platforms are more intuitive. Like when Threads started, it just pulled over people from Instagram who also follow you there, and you started out your account with followers, right? So there wasn't that much setup. I think you have like a profile picture, a short bio, and a link. But other than that, you kind of understand how to create content and how to post it. YouTube is not that way. There
Mhm.
are so many features in the back end of YouTube that if you don't know to turn them on, if you don't know that they're available to simplify things for you, you are really going to be missing out. And you'll see that your channel takes a very long time to take off because you haven't done some of that fundamental work. And so I think that's why it's important for you to not only start a channel, but either find some YouTubers that you resonate with or find a YouTube strategist or a coach that can kind of get you caught up to speed. So you're not wasting valuable time posting content, not really understanding how to optimize your profile.
Yes. Oh, that's such great advice. And I can like already tell I need to go rewatch the video or watch the video from you that I downloaded that I never watched because like I'm in that boat. My podcast is my primary platform, but I put the videos on YouTube and some of them get views and some of them don't. And I know it's because there's optimization that can kind of happen on the back end to, make it make sense.
Well, and I think that's what I'm really excited about with the app is that I see this happening all the time. And I have noticed that with YouTube, there is like a point of diminishing returns where you can't just like spam YouTube. Like posting daily on YouTube, you will look chaotic and confusing. And so having an app where I can just like, oh yeah, people are, they're really messing up with these live streams. Like they're looking janky. Like, let me help them out. Then I can just create a collection of content within the app and say, okay, this is specifically for helping you to improve your live stream performance. Or, here's a collection of videos about how to optimize your YouTube profile. It's essentially creating like mini courses without having to launch it, without having to do all this branding. And I think that is also going to change the way that I educate because there's less like admin work that needs to be done to market the content, that I can really just have like, my ear open to like these problems. And then I can create content that specifically addresses it and makes it really easy to find.
One of the things that you just said that I find fascinating is to market the content. And I think people have this thought that if I create content and put it out there, people will just find it. But there's things we have to do to get people to the content. And that's a reframe. And that's something where like, whether you're a content creator or you identify more as a service provider, that's like a piece of the puzzle that we really have to think about.
Yeah, in the film industry, they actually say that half of the budget of the movie needs to go to marketing, half
Wow.
to half to production and half to marketing. Like it is just that important. And so if you've got, huge brands thinking of production in that way, how much more important is it for us who aren't household names. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
like as you're creating this content, it's like even if the marketing for the content is SEO
SEO.
or it's, having a really good title or really good thumbnail, it's literally that important. If you think about it, half the time spent creating the content should be on driving traffic to that content. Are you putting
Mhm.
that level of intention behind your content, or are you posting and ghosting? And so I just think that it's a muscle that you have to build. And some people can just, go to the business gym and do it themselves, by going to YouTube University, and others need to be guided, they need a trainer. And so
Yeah.
I just really want to hone in on the importance of you having a qualified professional to guide you versus shotgun approach. Part of the reason why people burn out and they're so stressed and they're so overwhelmed is because they're wasting time trying to figure it out when someone already knows the solution. And
Yes.
so, if you have, the budget, if you have, and you don't even need, that's a whole nother conversation, but in a lot of cases, things cost a lot less than we realize. And we also devalue our own time. If someone can give you back 10 hours for the hour you spend with them, it's worth the money,
Mhm.
But again, whole nother conversation. But
Yeah.
I just think that a lot of people, they just need to give YouTube a try because things are really shifting with social media. I think the whole TikTok, potential real ban, we'll see if it actually happens. But the whole idea of this could literally go away tomorrow. Can your business survive without it?
Yeah.
It's really helping people to remember the importance of email marketing and the importance of, having systems in place that aren't so reliant on trends so that they can sustain their income.
Yeah. And I think that to that point, like not so reliant on trends, like this is a platform that's been around. And when we talk about the fact that it is a search engine, it is the number 2 search engine in the world. So
And
people,
no, and owned by the number one.
right.
Google
So,
owns YouTube.
right.
Like you're good.
Yeah, you need to be there. That's an important place to be. I love that. So before we wrap up, I do have a couple kind of just get to know you questions that we always ask our guests here on the podcast. And the first one is I'd love to know what is one of your brand values and how did you land on that and how does it show up in your day to day?
Reckless generosity is my number one value. I just think that we live in a culture where people are too tight fisted with their knowledge and with their resources. And I think that we need to be so much more compassionate with the level of generosity and how we run our businesses. And so everything I do, there's something I'm giving away, whether it's free information or you literally freebies that I mail in the physical mail. But people know me for being generous and to a level of shock and awe sometimes. And I think that's so important to surprise and delight people with your generosity. And when you do that and you do it from a place of honesty, your customers will refer you and
Mhm.
they'll be loyal to you because of the kindness that you've shown them.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, one of our brand values at the Consistency Corner is living with a growth mindset and personal development. So I always love to ask our guests, what is a personal development book that you love? Or for you, maybe it's a YouTube channel, another creator that you love. Or if you're like me and you can't pick a favorite, something that you've recently been consuming that you would recommend.
I think the book Essentialism really helped me to give myself permission to do less. And that just started kind of a snowball effect of me digging into what does it look like to do, I call it the minimum viable product. It's like, how little can I do to make the amount of money I need to make? Because I
Mhm.
know how to do the most, but it's the least that I'm learning how to do. And
Yeah.
so I think essentialism was like, wait a second. No, it's a strategic thing. It's a good thing to not be in a place of burnout and overwhelm and being overworked. So yeah, that really started a chain reaction for me. And now I'm like, the girl that's 4 days on, 3 days off, 20 hours a week, like killing
Yeah.
it. But I needed that permission to try first. And so that
I
book did that for me.
I love that. And I think you're right. We have been taught how to do more, how to do the most. And we've been rewarded for that, most of us in school, in corporate culture. And it's a completely different mindset shift. And so I love that. I'll have to add that to my to read book list. And
Yeah,
then
it's really good.
yeah, our last question, because we are all about consistency, but gentle reminder for everyone listening, consistent doesn't have to mean constant. But I would love to know something that you are really consistent with, either in your business or your personal life, that you're really proud of.
I think it goes back to that 20-hour work week. I am very consistent with taking Fridays off. I would be very hard pressed to schedule something on a Friday. Sometimes I have to, but I really try at the very least to do half days. And I think it's because I understand my threshold. And when
Mhm.
I start to exceed that 20 hours doing the deep focus work that I do, I start to become more irritable. I'm not as joyful. I start cutting things out that I know help me as a person. And
Mhm.
so I stick to that parameter because it allows me to be the best version of myself that I can. And it helps me to show up well for the people that I love and care about. And so, yeah, that boundary has impacted both sides, personal and business, and both have become better off because of it.
Yeah, I can imagine. How long have you been leveraging that schedule?
I would say a couple years. I'd
Okay.
say a couple years.
Yeah. When you first started, was it like, oh, I'm going to try this out and see, or had you kind of been inching towards that for a while?
I think I understood how bad it would be to consistently burn out,
Hmm.
but I hadn't figured out like what does that practically look like? Because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, like laptop lifestyle. I'm like, yeah, but like how?
Hmm.
And so learning productivity hacks and learning what I could cut out without it damaging my business. It took time to refine the process, but now I got it down to a science and I'm really loving it.
Yeah, I love that. Well, LaShonda, I appreciate you so much for being here, and you shared so many wonderful tips. If people are interested in learning more, working with you, you mentioned an app. Share where we can connect with you, and we'll definitely put all the links in the show notes as well.
So I have two little home bases, and I would say bootstrapbizdevice.com is my app, it's my community, it's my platform. But if you want a place that links to everything I got going on, whether it's tool discounts, upcoming workshops, want to book me for a speaking engagement, all of that stuff, you can go to LaShondaBrown.com.
Yes, awesome. Thank you again so much for being here. I really appreciate you.
You're so welcome.